It all started with a brilliant chemist, a man who could have changed the world with his knowledge of chemistry. Instead, he chose the dark path, turning his lab into a factory of destruction. If you thought Breaking Bad was fiction, think again. The real-life stories of underground chemists and cartel masterminds make Walter White look like an amateur. But here's the real question. What makes a scientist turn into a criminal? Was it greed, desperation, or something far more sinister? Today, we uncover the shocking true stories of the real-life Breaking Bads, the men who built drug empires from nothing, outwitting law enforcement at every turn, until they didn't. The line between genius and madness is razor thin. In the 1980s, a man named Paul Le Roux wasn't just smart, he was a visionary coder and a mastermind of crime. He created an online pharmacy empire that secretly funneled millions of dollars into illegal drug manufacturing. But this was only the beginning. His empire expanded into arms dealing, cartel executions, and global drug trafficking. Before Le Roux, there was George Marquardt, a brilliant chemist who specialized in one thing, making the purest methamphetamine the world had ever seen. Unlike Walter White, Marquardt wasn't some high school teacher with a secret lab. He was an obsessive genius, running a sophisticated meth operation that supplied drugs across the United States. Marquardt's operation was unlike anything law enforcement had seen. His meth was so pure and potent that it became the gold standard for drug traffickers. But what made him even more dangerous was that he knew how to stay ahead of the game. He constantly changed his formulas, outsmarting DEA chemists who were trying to track him down. For years, the authorities had no idea where this new strain of ultra-pure meth was coming from. The DEA was baffled. How could someone produce industrial-scale meth without being caught? That's when they started piecing together the clues that led to one man, Marquardt, the ghost chemist. Meanwhile, across the ocean, another real-life Breaking Bad was unfolding. In Japan, Tsunekazu Takeda, a highly respected scientist, had a deadly secret. He was using his pharmaceutical knowledge to manufacture and distribute synthetic drugs so powerful they were banned in over 50 countries. His network stretched from Asia to Europe, pulling in billions of dollars before he disappeared, leaving behind only a few cryptic clues about his empire. Like Walter White, these men weren't just drug dealers. They were scientists, engineers, and masterminds who weaponized their intelligence. They didn't just make drugs, they created formulas that police couldn't detect, laundering money in ways that baffled forensic accountants, and eliminating rivals with military precision. One of the biggest real-life Breaking Bad operations involved fentanyl, the deadly synthetic opioid that has killed thousands. In the 1990s, a rogue Russian chemist known only as Dr. X began producing a strain of fentanyl so potent and lethal that even a few milligrams could kill instantly. His operation spread across Europe and North America, flooding the streets with a drug that law enforcement struggled to control. While Walter White had Jesse Pinkman, these real-life drug chemists had entire networks of trained chemists and distributors. Some built underground labs that were invisible to authorities, while others bribed officials to keep operations running for years. One of the most notorious cases involved a secret cartel-run lab hidden inside a legal pharmaceutical factory, producing massive quantities of illegal opioids while disguising them as prescription medication. But as we've seen time and time again, every empire eventually crumbles. Whether it was arrogance, a single mistake, or betrayal, these brilliant criminal masterminds couldn't outrun the inevitable. Some were caught by pure chance, others by deep-cover DEA operations, and a few simply vanished. In the next part of this story, we uncover exactly how the law finally caught up to them, and the shocking ways they fell from power. For George Marquardt, the fall came in a way no one expected. The DEA had spent years trying to track him down, but he was too smart, too careful. He constantly changed locations, never left a trace, and had enough knowledge of chemistry to cover his tracks completely. But in the end, it wasn't science that betrayed him. It was human error. One of his associates got caught and, under intense pressure, gave up his name. That's all it took. Federal agents raided Marquardt's hidden lab, and what they found was unlike anything they had ever seen. Sophisticated chemical processing units, massive stockpiles of precursor chemicals, and formulas so advanced that even DEA chemists had trouble deciphering them. It was a Breaking Bad operation on steroids. But no matter how brilliant he was, Marquardt couldn't outthink the reality of a courtroom. He was sentenced to life in prison, with no chance of parole. Paul Le Roux, on the other hand, was far more ruthless. His empire wasn't just about drugs. It was about violence, corruption, and absolute power. He had an army of mercenaries, connections to international arms deals, and enough money to bribe entire governments. But like all powerful criminals, paranoia became his downfall. Le Roux started suspecting his own men of betrayal, and that's when he made his fatal mistake. He started eliminating his closest associates. What he didn't realize was that one of his hitmen was an undercover informant working for the US government. The DEA had been following his operation for years, but they needed solid proof to take him down. They got it when Le Roux, believing he was untouchable, personally ordered a hit over an encrypted call, a call that was secretly being recorded by federal agents. In 2012, the mastermind behind one of the biggest criminal operations in modern history was arrested. The government flipped him, turning him into an informant to take down dozens of his own associates. His cooperation led to multiple arrests and a massive dismantling of the dark web drug trade. But even behind bars, his knowledge of cybercrime, weapon smuggling, and drug manufacturing still makes him one of the most dangerous criminals alive today. And then there's the case of Dr. X, the Russian chemist who changed the game of synthetic drugs forever. Unlike Marquardt or Le Roux, Dr. X was never in it for money. He was in it for the challenge. He wanted to push the limits of chemical engineering, creating drugs more powerful, more addictive, and more undetectable than anything before. His fentanyl operation flooded streets from Moscow to Miami, leaving a trail of overdoses in its wake. But here's the chilling part. Dr. X was never caught. Despite numerous international investigations, his true identity was never confirmed. Some believe he's still out there, constantly shifting locations, working in underground labs, experimenting on new formulas that law enforcement hasn't even heard of yet. He is, in every sense of the word, a ghost. These real-life stories prove one terrifying truth. Intelligence alone doesn't make a criminal successful. It's the ability to adapt, manipulate, and outthink law enforcement. Walter White's transformation into Heisenberg may have been fiction, but the science of crime is very real. And the most dangerous criminals? They aren't the ones with guns. They're the ones with labs, formulas, and the power to change the world in ways we can't even imagine. But the question remains, how many of these masterminds are still out there? The ones who haven't been caught. The ones who have changed their names, buried their past, and disappeared into the shadows. For every Marquardt or Le Roux who fell, there's another rising in their place. The world of crime is a constant game of cat and mouse, and as long as there are brilliant minds willing to break the rules, the next Breaking Bad could already be happening, right now. So, what do you think? Do you believe criminal geniuses will always find a way to stay ahead of the law? Or is law enforcement finally catching up? Let us know in the comments. And if you love true crime stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Because trust me, you won't want to miss what we uncover next.